What is going on, everyone? Welcome to today's episode of the Jayden Bryce Show, the show where we talk about the hottest topics in the world of sports. As you can hear in my voice, I'm healthy. It has been approximately almost 2 weeks since I've produced a show 100%, and I'm glad to be back, although it will be short-lived because I graduated from college over the weekend, and on Wednesday, we are leaving to go on vacation to celebrate that. Then we're going to have the Christmas holiday. So we're going to have a show today. We're going to have a show tomorrow. And then the rest of the week, I am going to be off due to me being out of town on vacation. But do not worry. We got a lot of content we're going to get to this week. Today's show on December 15th, approximately 10 days before Christmas. For some reason, maybe it's just because I've been in college, the Christmas holiday, for some odd reason, just continues to creep up on us super fast. It feels like I just got done eating turkey 2 weeks ago. But either way, and plus, I'm not even done Christmas shopping. Is that a bad thing to say as of December 15th? Anyways, today is December 15th on a lovely Monday morning, post week 15 of the NFL season. And today, I have my shirt on, but as you are aware, the Dallas Cowboys season more than likely just came to an end last night. We're going to discuss that. Patrick Mahomes suffered an ACL injury. We're going to talk about the future of the Kansas City Chiefs. Another person who suffered an injury yesterday, Micah Parsons, as of an hour ago, has been confirmed torn ACL. He is going to be out for the rest of the season. How does that bode for the Packers? Going to discuss that game. And we're going to discuss some Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen put on a masterclass yesterday. I know it's in my title, MVP case, question mark. We're going to get to that as well. And lastly, I'm going to talk some Colts. I know I said last week I was going to make another show. I was under the weather, just did not feel like it. I barely got through last Tuesday's show. So I'm going to expound upon what I wanted to talk about last week and add on to it with the whole Phillip Rivers thing, which is, haven't had the opportunity to talk about it. Just absolutely insane that Phillip Rivers hasn't played in 5 years, fixing to probably get into the Hall of Fame, had a good case for it. He just decides, you know what? We're going to give up all that just for a quick 4 games of fun. Kind of weird to do that, but I'm going to give my 2 cents on the state of the Indianapolis Colts. 5 topics. We're going to get to it under an hour. I'm so glad to be back. Thank you all for being a part of the family, and hopefully we can get this. Got a lot of exciting things for the pod coming up in the future. Really do. Be on the lookout for that post the Christmas holiday. Got a lot of things that I've been working on that I am very excited. Going to be having some guests on. Going to make this thing a little more interactive. Got a lot of exciting things coming up in the future for the Jayden Bryce Show, and I hope you all subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Share my podcast to a family. Refer it to a friend. They may be a fan. I feel like I'm super entertaining, and I hope you find me super entertaining. But if you do find me super entertaining, please hit the like button on this podcast, and also check out my other podcast and my other content on my YouTube channel. Follow me on my socials down below in the description. And without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into today's show. There's no sugarcoating it. That obviously, as of today, on December 15th, post week 15 of the NFL season, that the Dallas Cowboys season is more than likely over. As you see down below, the Dallas Cowboys need to win out, and Philadelphia needs to lose out in order for the Dallas Cowboys to have the hopes of getting into the playoffs. Last night's game was absolutely utterly embarrassing. Maybe it's just because I don't have high expectations for this team, but I didn't find myself like absolutely disappointed that they lost. It's kind of one of those seasons where I cover all these other teams in the NFL. And when you look across the landscape of the league, when you look at just the NFC in comparison to the Dallas Cowboys, like, this is not a good football team. They don't deserve to be in the playoffs. Now, I was somewhat riding on the Cowboys Kool-Aid a couple of weeks ago after coming off a huge Thanksgiving victory against the Chiefs. And I was telling myself, I was like, all right, the Cowboys could run the table. Like, they could make some noise. But I still had the back of my mind, and I said this, and I was like, kind of still an uphill battle. But I thought it was preferably doable. But man, did I understand the Lions' loss? Yes. But I really thought Dallas could run the table. And I did not think that 9, J.J. McCarthy, was going to be the person that just put an absolute nail in the coffin for the Dallas Cowboys playoff hopes. Cowboys fans, I bring you bad news. This team is not making the playoffs. They're a bad football team. And somebody cue on the tank memes. I know Jeff and everybody along with associated with DLLS Cowboys is already starting their draft talk. Vach Lombardi, Brian, they're about to start their draft talk. It's that time of the year, Cowboys fans. We got to accept it. This team is going to Cancun in 4 weeks, and they got a lot of things that they got to do in the upcoming weeks of the season, postseason as well with free agency and all these other players. But let's just get to the task at hand. My takeaways from last night's game. Sunday Night Football, absolutely abysmal performance by the Dallas Cowboys. My main takeaway from Dallas' point of view. And I don't even have much to talk about when it comes to the Vikings. They're not making the playoffs. I've talked about J.J. McCarthy a multitude of times. He played relatively well yesterday. But he's not who I want to mainly talk about today. My team is who I want to talk about. After watching that game, I said to myself, there's no way they bring back Matt Eberflus. There's just no way. That defensive performance yesterday is absolutely abysmal. I know a lot of people were wanting to blame the Cowboys' offense for the reason why the Cowboys lost the game yesterday. I understand your argument. You know, they struggled in the red zone offensively. They gave up too much pressure with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott got sacked a couple times, really pressured a lot. I think that it was the most pressures he's had in his career. It was kind of alongside this. I don't know if that's 100% true, but the stat that I read coming from a couple of Cowboys beat writers, the stat was referably close to the stat they had last week where Dak had like one of the most pressures all season in his career, something along those lines. Went for too many field goals. But sometimes your defense just has to get stops. They have to. And this is a game where I did not have J.J. McCarthy looking like prime Peyton Manning with the zone fake on 4th down, his 4th or 3rd down, 1 or 2. I didn't have that on my bingo card yesterday. I didn't have Mr. 5th quarterback taken in the draft last year, drafting him top 12 in his draft class. A guy who all season has struggled. We've had all this controversy. I've talked about J.J. McCarthy a multitude of times this year. A guy in J.J. McCarthy who was supposed to be out with a high ankle sprain, ended up being out roughly, did it end up being around 8 weeks in favor for having Carson Wentz in, who absolutely got destroyed in that time span. He tore his labrum, had a knee injury, like his whole body just shut off. And they were in favor of rather playing him than J.J. McCarthy. Just a lot of bad stuff associated with this guy this year. He's not played good football. He's like on PFF, which I don't like their grading system to a certain degree, but they showed up last night. Out of the 32 quarterbacks graded in the NFL this season, he was 31. This game had, and Justin Jefferson last week had like 15 yards receiving. So this game was easily pointing towards the Cowboys defensively, like, yeah, we're going to be able to have a day and get some stops. That was not the case. In no world can people think that an offense has to score 30 points in a game just to be able to win. If that is the case, you are a bad football team. That situation really only worked for the Kansas City Chiefs the first couple of years under Patrick Mahomes and the years they were going to the Super Bowl. Their defense wasn't the greatest, but they were pretty much middle of the pack. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, you had all these weapons. Andy Reid, the offensive mastermind that he was, they were able to score relatively 30 points a game. They were a part. That team was a part of one of the most historic Monday Night Football games of all time against Jared Goff in LA at the LA Coliseum, where both of them had 50 points in a game. And then you have the Rams. ironically, the greatest show on turf back in the 2000s. But ladies and gentlemen, that is not a recipe for good football, being a good football team. That's why only you can think of 2 teams being able to accomplish the feat of not having a phenomenal or even middle of the pack defense over the last 25 years of the NFL. The idea that people are putting all this pressure on Dak Prescott and the offense to relatively, in their minds, in their arguments, to be perfect is not the identity and the efficiency of having an elite and being considered an elite football team in the NFL. Look at a team that we're going to discuss later, the Broncos. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and their offense, let's be honest, isn't the greatest. But guess what? They're 12-2. They have clinched a playoff spot in the AFC playoff. They're in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed. The phrase defense wins championships is not an understatement. I know a lot of people started questioning this philosophy a couple of years ago because Patrick Mahomes was so great and that offense was so elite and they were able to win Super Bowls. But we saw what happened last year against Philadelphia. The year where the Chiefs played the Buccaneers and the Buccaneers defense absolutely suffocated Patrick Mahomes. The quote still lives. The philosophy has not changed, even with the evolution of our game. Defense wins championships, and the Cowboys do not have that. A lot of that has to do, again, with Matt Eberflus. The Cowboys blitzed. I cannot remember approximately the stat. I wrote down the contrary stat to it. I'm about to look it up just right again because I want to tell you guys the exact stat. Okay. Matt Eberflus's blitz rate. This is how many times he blitzed the last 2 weeks. In the first quarter, he blitzed 60% of the time. Yesterday, in last night's game, he blitzed the safety, Donovan Wilson, first play drive of the game, and forces an interception. In the second through the fourth quarter, he only blitzed 13%. Here was J.J. McCarthy last night statistically. Against zone, J.J. McCarthy was 10 for 14, 178 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Versus man coverage yesterday, he was 5 for 10, 72 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I guess you can classify the 1 interception that he threw on that blitz play, so it was a zone blitz. But either way, the idea is when you bring pressure with this defense, they've been successful. So they had J.J. McCarthy 5 for 10, 72 yards. But in contrary to when they played zone, J.J. McCarthy was absolutely carving them up. He averaged 20 yards a pass. That is what J.J. McCarthy did yesterday. J.J. McCarthy was 15 for 24, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that 1 interception. J.J. McCarthy had a really good day yesterday. Again, this Cowboys defense made J.J. McCarthy look like prime Peyton Manning with the whole zone fake. Nobody saw him, and he literally grittied into the end zone. Go back and look at the replay. He gritted into the end zone. That is what happened yesterday. And this was a game where Justin Jefferson didn't play well. Jefferson caught 2 passes for 22 yards. He had 8 targets. He had a couple throws that went through right in his hands, even a touchdown pass. Jordan Addison, 2 catches for 66 yards. And then they weren't even able to run the football very well. They ran for under 3 yards a carry. And yet in the passing game, they got absolutely boat raced. And this was really, and I posted this on Twitter while I was watching this game. This was like such an indictment against the front office, the decisions they've made, and the team that they've built, and the idea of trading away Micah Parsons, which I think will benefit in the future. But this lets you know, like, this team shouldn't make the playoffs. have no chance. They don't deserve to be in the playoffs, and that this defense is so anemic. In the fourth quarter, with roughly 3:12 to go in the game, Brian Schottenheimer throwing that challenge on the final drive with the fumble that Aaron Jones committed is just an indictment against how terrible this defense was. The Cowboys were so desperate for a turnover to just get the ball back. Couldn't stop Minnesota all day. They were so desperate for a stop that a play where Brian Schottenheimer, and I'm sure everyone in the replay booth and their whole squad, the Dallas Cowboys replay, whatever you want to call them, their job title that helps Brian Schottenheimer make these type of challenging decisions, whether to challenge this play or not. I'm sure they all saw that replay. Aaron Jones clearly was down on the ground, and the ball came out of his hands via contact of the ground. But Brian Schottenheimer was so desperate for a turnover because he knew his team could not get one, that he would rather have used his final timeout by challenging that play and not saving it to try and just get a stop, use that timeout to have more chance and more time on the clock. He'd rather have done that. He wouldn't rather have done that. He would have rather threw that challenge than rather had that philosophy. That was an indictment against how bad that defense is in Dallas. They weren't good across the board. And it starts with Matt Eberflus. He's not a good defensive coordinator. Last year, the Bears, under his whole coaching stint, go back and look at the Bears' defensive stats. They were not a good defensive team. And for a guy in Matt Eberflus, who is supposed to be has a history of being a good linebackers coach, he's developed Shaquille Leonard and all these great linebackers, Sean Lee at the time when he was in Dallas. For him to be a linebackers coach, this has got to be one of the worst linebacking cores in the league. Taking away DeMarion Overshawn, he's had a brutal injury. It's going to take him another year to get it's going to take an off season and training camp, OTAs to get his football legs up under him. And it was just a tall ask and tall order for him to play super elite football this season. But when you got guys like Kenneth Murray, these project guys and Louis Fowl, like these young players that the Cowboys have invested in, they're not getting better. Like this linebacking core is awful. There's multiple plays that they showed on Twitter yesterday. Cowboys beat writers were showing it where Kenneth Murray was not filling in the right holes. Like, this linebacking core has to be one of the worst in the league. So if you're Matt Eberflus, and that is supposed to be your specialty, you have one of the worst linebacker units in the NFL. Like, they can't do anything well. They can't fit their run gaps. They can't cover. And you're playing this zone scheme, not playing enough man-to-man coverage to where you're playing against your defensive personnel strength. So I think they should move on for Matt Eberflus. There was a play where he rushed 3 on 4th and 3. The play where it was a good ball, back shoulder throw to Jalen Naylor. Siobhan Revel, pretty good coverage. But he only rushed 3, and J.J. McCarthy was able to get that throw off. It was just a whole lot of bad yesterday from the Cowboys' defensive point of view. And I can't blame it on offense. Yes, Dak and the offense was not good on third down. They were 2 for 12. But outside, if they would have not missed those 2 field goals, which are chip shots for Brandon Aubrey, they would have scored 32 points. 32 points should be good enough to win you a ball game. Dak Prescott was 23 for 38. Didn't turn the ball over. Pretty efficient. Javonte Williams averaged 6 yards a carry. And CD had 111 yards. Like, this offense was pretty efficient yesterday from a statistical standpoint. Outside of third down and things of that nature, like, they didn't turn the ball. They didn't play, and they weren't the reason why Dallas lost this game. If people are thinking that, they really need to people who are arguing this on their podcast, on TV, they should really just consider just pulling down the microphone, taking it out their hands, and just doing another job. There's no way you watched this game yesterday. And the takeaway from the Cowboys' perspective is, okay, this offense was abysmal yesterday. There's a reason why they lost, and that's why. There's no shot. And ultimately, it's draft time for the Dallas Cowboys. It's super imperative that both of these players they have with these first-round picks are studs. If we look across the defense, they need players everywhere. They definitely need a linebacker. I think that arguably is probably their number one need right now. They need an edge rusher and they need a corner. And they need safeties. Like, they need everything. The Cowboys' path for success next season, I think the offense is pretty set. This is a Super Bowl caliber offense. The way you flip this defense is if you invest in key positions. I think they can find good safeties in free agency. I just think the important position that you really get right is if you get that edge rusher in the draft and get that linebacker. I think you can find decent corners. I don't know what you're going to do with Diggs. There's a lot of stuff to do in Dallas. Like, you got to hit on these draft picks. Like, you really, ideally what they need to do, you need to recoup some picks. I don't know how you can do that in this draft by just trading back in a couple rounds, getting more picks. Like Ryan Flournoy, and let's just give some kudos to Ryan Flournoy. The way he's been able to elevate his game and and just mature into the player that he's become. Like, we've seen the potential. Like, he's a great player. 6th-round talent. And he is just becoming a star. That's the type of talent Dallas needs to find on the defensive side of the ball in order to change this defense. I think they got good players. Build around Q. You're going to have Osa. You're going to have Kenny Clark. Ezra Raku. He's going to turn out to be a pretty good player. You have a good edge rusher to go along with your defense. You really need a corner. Definitely need a linebacker. And you need to get some safeties in free agency because Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker is not good enough to get the job done. But how long have I been talking about this topic? I don't even know how long. I was supposed to be on record for some reason, and I don't know why I just stopped recording. But yes, that is it, and that is all I'm going to discuss when it pertains to the Dallas Cowboys ultimately losing in their matchup yesterday against the Minnesota Vikings. And let's go ahead and transition into our very next topic. Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs season has pretty much been on free fall. Many people like the Nick Wrights of the world and all these people, they were thinking that the Chiefs were going to have that wake-up call at some point. That they were going to make the playoffs. And I didn't watch this game yesterday. I didn't plan on really talking about it. It wasn't one of my games on the radar. Out of all the 1 o'clock games, this was like my least watched one. I had Red Zone on. I had Bills-Patriots on my phone. I was watching a lot of games. And this was one that I wasn't planning on talking about. But after all the 1 o'clock games had gone off, Red Zone highlighted this game. And we saw the play where Patrick Mahomes' leg pretty much hyperextended. First time watching it, I was like, okay, looks like a hyperextension. He will be fine. Then the news was coming out that this looked like it was pretty serious. I was pretty shocked. And we got the news that Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL, and he is out the rest of the season and parts of 2026. On top of that, the Kansas City Chiefs was eliminated from the playoffs yesterday for the first time since 2014. And my main takeaway, and I posted it on Twitter, which is the reason why I wanted to expound upon this topic on the pod, that injury really exemplified how unfortunate their season is, or has been. A guy in Patrick Mahomes, who I can argue has been the what's the metaphor I can use? He's been, and the reason why I can't remember, I wrote it on my script didn't save on my phone on my laptop for some reason, so I had to rewrite it, and I had like a good analogy to provide for why I thought about this injury. But basically, he was the only part of the motor that was working on a sinking ship. Their season, this team has not been good. And I believe that Patrick Mahomes was the only bright spot in their struggle. A guy like Chris Jones hasn't played well. Travis Kelce cost them games. Both of those guys has cost them games. Go back to when the Chiefs played the Jaguars on Monday Night Football back in like week 5, week 6, whenever it was. The play where Trevor Lawrence, he got out of the pocket, scored a game-winning touchdown. There was video of Chris Jones lollygagging and just walking around, giving no effort. Travis Kelce in that same game cost the team with a costly interception. Made some huge drops last week in the game against the Texans. Both of those guys haven't played their best this season. Now, statistically, Travis Kelce has played pretty well, but they haven't played well. This defense hasn't played the best. And Patrick Mahomes, with the lack of run game, hasn't had one. Receivers, Rashee Rice, all these key players not producing like I expected them to. And I'm sure the Chiefs fan base, the Chiefs themselves, thought they were going to perform. In the midst of all that, Patrick Mahomes, 3-time Super Bowl champion, considered already in the conversation for the best quarterback in the history of football, has been their only bright spot, in my opinion. And it was just, and I'm not making light of the injury. It was kind of like, this was ironic. This was literally poetically ironic. The idea, this is now it's coming to light what I wrote on my last script. So this is what I wrote down, and now I remember it. Is poetically ironic that Patrick Mahomes, on a game-winning drive, a game-tying drive, either way you want to put it, it's a go-get-it drive, final drive of the game, season on the line, he gets injured. And he's potentially out for the rest of the game. You put in Gardner Minshew, a guy who's not thrown a single pass all season. He goes in, and in the next 3 minutes, he throws an interception, and your season is over. It's, again, back to my analogy. The ship's already sinking. Patrick Mahomes, the one part of the motor that's keeping them afloat, and that motor crashed. That motor was Patrick Mahomes. And that injury, the Chiefs' season came down with him. It is just poetically ironic. And there's no other way you can put it. The Chiefs' future is very uncertain. And Bleacher Report, they posted this when they posted their score of their game, that the game was over. They said the dynasty is over. And I've said this on multiple occasions. I think that's a little too harsh. But when you really think about it, Patrick Mahomes is going to be out majority of next season. You have a lot of players who you might have to move on from. Kelce might call it quits, even though he's had a good season. You have many pending free agents. Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquise Brown, Tyquan Thornton, Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco, Jalen Watson. All of those are key guys who are pending free agents. And again, Patrick Mahomes will be out majority of next season. They are going to be having to look for a quarterback. You're the Kansas City Chiefs. You are going to compete. You want to compete. You're going to have to be in the market of getting a quarterback. I don't know if you're going to do that via the draft. I doubt it. But you're going to have to get one that is going to be able to last you at the earliest, maybe mid-October, late October. The thing about an ACL, I don't know what other ligament damage Patrick Mahomes has. He's a quarterback. This isn't a wide receiver, edge rusher where, you're going to have to move a lot. Patrick Mahomes can be very efficient coming off this injury. And, I saved this on my phone. There's an interesting stat that was going around yesterday. And this is what further argues the talk about the dynasty. Both Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes won 3 Super Bowls early in their careers and then tore their ACLs in their 9th seasons, with both teams missing the playoffs. So you can say that GOAT history is repeating itself. And that although this dynasty, winning 3 Super Bowls, may be over, but the argument that another one could be brewing post Patrick Mahomes ACL era could happen. But here could be the major difference. Brady still had Belichick. And the Patriots organization was able to draft very well and bring in new pieces in that second part of the Patriots dynasty. Chandler Jones, Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman. Like, you had all these good players. Dante Hightower, McCarthy. The Chiefs are going to have to be able to do that. Can Mahomes be successful without Andy Reid? Brady was able to have Belichick. I don't know if Andy Reid's going to be around that long for a second dynasty. I would question if Andy Reid is going to be coaching for the next 3 years. So the difference between the Chiefs having a dynasty in comparison to the Patriots, Patrick Mahomes is going to have to find a way to be efficient without Andy Reid as his play caller. That could be a tall task for Patrick Mahomes to do, because Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, of course, Eric Bieniemy is not part of this coaching staff currently, and he was able to win one without him. But Andy Reid has been a focal point for Patrick Mahomes' success, a key contributor. I think the idea of the combo of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid as a combo could get Andy Reid into the Hall of Fame as a coach. And help bolt, there was a time when they won their first Super Bowl, everyone was making the statement that Patrick Mahomes saved Andy Reid's career. Like, Andy Reid didn't win a Super Bowl. He was like one of the best coaches to never win one. And you have this guy in Patrick Mahomes, he came in and just revolutionized his career. He goes on to win 3 Super Bowls, and now Andy Reid's considered one of the best coaches in the last 20 years. And he's more than likely going to be in the Hall of Fame. So is Patrick Mahomes, can he be successful without that? That is a tall question that we're going to learn. And will the Hunt family be able to draft a team around Patrick Mahomes to be successful? Because you look at the free agents, they need a running back. They need, honestly, Rashee Rice, the way he's playing, they need a wide receiver. You're going to need a tight end. Travis Kelce's not going to be there for that second part of that dynasty. Chris Jones is not going to be there, a part of that second part of that dynasty. Like, they have to really invest in being able to build an efficient roster if they hope to build a second dynasty. I think they can do it because they have 15. This injury is not going to derail him. I think this will make him better. Great quarterbacks have went on to tear their ACL. Again, Tom Brady. Joe Burrow tore his very first season. He took him to the Super Bowl next year. So this is not the end of Patrick Mahomes. This is only the beginning. And I think his success is going to ultimately ride on the Hunt family building an elite roster around him. Let's move on to our very next injury. The NFL was riddled with them last week. This one, I might argue, is worse across all fronts. As of an hour ago, Jordan Schultz, he pretty much gives out news for all the major topics around the sports world. We just got confirmation an hour ago that Micah Parsons did indeed tear his ACL, and he is out for the rest of the season, and is probably just crushed. Just literally bottled it up in the dust, blew it away. The Packers' Super Bowl hopes. This injury has to be the worst one that I can think of in recent memory. The Packers have invested their future in this guy. Like, their future idea of winning a Super Bowl. You gave up 2 first-round picks. You paid him $48 million. And in this window, where it's like, yeah, you got to win in this window because Micah Parsons' contract is only going to get more expensive. You don't have future first-round draft picks your next couple of years. And the team, you're not going to be able to keep all these players that they've built around them. They're going to be free agents. And Micah Parsons was kind of like the catalyst and the main factor if the Packers were going to win the Super Bowl this year. And tragically, I don't say this lightly, he got himself injured and it's over. And I was fixing to say this, like, when I was talking about the Cowboys earlier, I'm like, yeah, Dallas, their draft pick, will continue to get better. But I didn't want to say that gladly. Like, this injury is horrible. Their defense yesterday, post Micah Parsons' injury, looked deflated. Like, it didn't even look the same post Micah Parsons' injury. Bo Nix was absolutely phenomenal yesterday, which we'll get to him later on in a bit. But even on the offensive side of the ball, they looked deflated. Micah Parsons, like, he was that important to this roster. Just imagine losing your number one player on each of your rosters. Imagine the Patriots right now losing Drake Maye. Imagine the Bills losing Josh Allen the rest of the season. Like, that is what type of injury we're talking about here. Granted, it's not the quarterback. It's your edge rusher. And if you don't have a quarterback, you're just screwed. But look at the Eagles a couple years ago. Carson Wentz tears his ACL. You put Nick Foles in at quarterback. They were able to win the Super Bowl. I don't know if that's the same case for the Packers. Like, Micah Parsons is not as replaceable. When you watched the game yesterday, Micah Parsons was everywhere. Every time I turn around, Micah Parsons is in the backfield getting pressure on Bo Nix. Their Super Bowl hopes was riding on the defense. Now the Packers won't be able to generate much pass rush. Their back end can get more exposed, which has been their weak part of their defense. Like, their secondary has been their weakness. Their front seven is their strength, led by Micah Parsons. And more pressure, and this creates more pressure on the offense, which equals more pressure on Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love, which can be a recipe for disaster. Over the last couple of weeks, they've been able to generate some type of identity on offense. They've had a good run game. Watson has been their star. He's had 5 touchdowns in their last 4 or 5 games. Coming into yesterday's game, he went down with an injury yesterday, although they come out today and said it won't be that serious of an injury. But for a majority of the season, the Packers' offense has been their weakest part of their team. Their defense has been their most consistent unit all season. Outside of a couple games here and there, they gave up 40 against Dallas, but that was the number one offense in the league at the time. But this defensive unit, was the main catalyst and the bright spot for the reason why everyone had this team going to the Super Bowl, being able to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And now with this Micah Parsons injury, that idea may be out of the window. This sucks for the Packers. This sucks for Micah Parsons, and this ultimately sucks for their fan base. You invested a lot in this guy, and you just feel gutted. I've already saw multiple Packers fans reiterating this idea because they do not trust Jordan Love and this offense to pick up the weight of this injury and lead these guys to the Super Bowl. And I don't blame them. I'm right there with them. This is just brutal across all fronts for the Packers. I wish nothing but a good recovery for Micah Parsons, and I hope he's able to come back just as good as he did and has been the last couple of years. He had an all-pro case this year. He was in the running for first-team all-pro. I think Myles Garrett has been running away with Defensive Player of the Year, but he was playing like a first-team all-pro. He had 66 pressures this season. I think there was a stat, all the others combined were like 67. something like that. That's how important this player is. But let's just shift away gears right fast to the Broncos. I haven't been that high on the Broncos this season. Let's be honest. They haven't played well on offense. Defensive unit has been pretty good, but they've just been able to squeak by games. But it might be time to put some respect on the Broncos. They're finding ways to win games. Bo Nix plays well when you ultimately need them to. They have a phenomenal defense. And let's be honest, I think this team really reminds me of the Philadelphia Eagles of last year. Philadelphia, had a pretty good defense. Probably even phenomenal defense last year. And there were cases where the offense was hit and miss here or there, but in the playoffs, they were able to turn everything on and go on to win the Super Bowl. And I feel like the Broncos is built that way. Bo Nix yesterday was absolutely phenomenal. He had 4 touchdowns and 3 for 300 yards. RJ Harvey was able to run the ball decent, but their receiving core, Courtland Sutton, Troy Franklin, able to have a day. And that might have to do more with the Packers' secondary. But this team is good. Like that interception that Patrick Surtain had on Jordan Love, that interception that was absolutely phenomenal. Like this team is good. I've been sleeping on this team enough. I think they're a good ball club. I don't love them though as the favorites to win the Super Bowl. But it's really going to be hard for me not to see this team at least in the AFC Championship game. They are in the driver's seat as of right now to get the number 1 seed in the AFC and playing in January in Denver. It's not going to be fun for anybody. Not going to be fun. In the second round, if they clinch their first round bye, like what team could they get? When you look across the landscape of the league, like just look across the league. Look across the NFL. If we look at the standings and we look at their conference, they could pull maybe like a Chargers, Bills in the divisional game. I would bet the Broncos win that game. Because we're going to talk about the Bills in this next topic, but we really, really have to start putting respect on the Broncos' name. I still don't love them to be the favorites to win the Super Bowl. But we got to give credit to Sean Payton. He has these guys ready to play. He's had Bo Nix making plays when he ultimately needs to. He's been dialing up great play calls for Bo Nix. This marriage, although it's had its problems publicly, it's turned out to bode very well. And they have the pieces around them to be a Super Bowl caliber roster. And they are going to be in the mix come late January. One more game we're going to digest until I talk a little bit about the Colts. The main game that I really watched pretty much every second of yesterday. Josh Allen. This guy. Josh Allen continues to save the day for this team. He really does. The Buffalo Bills completed 5 straight drives, 5 straight touchdown drives to overcome a 21-point deficit in the second half. That performance yesterday, how great is Josh Allen? He honestly has a great argument for the conversation of most valuable player. I know Stafford's in the mix, but if we really compare these two rosters, look at Josh Allen's team right now compared to the Rams. You watched the Rams yesterday, they have players everywhere. Defensively, that defensive line can just get at you, have a pretty decent secondary. It's not the best, but it's decent enough to get the job done because your front 7 is just phenomenal. And look at what Matt Stafford has at his disposal. You have Devontae Adams, you have Puka Nacua, pretty good tight ends. You have all these guys like number 18 catching a touchdown pass, which looked like a controversial one yesterday, making plays. You're sitting here who's this guy? He's out here making plays. The Bills don't have that. You watch the Bills. Keon Coleman's been a disappointment. You got a guy, Khalil Shakir. He's 5'11", 5'10", out there making plays. He's your number one receiver. Keon Coleman, been an absolute disappointment. And you're running and hoping this two tight end combo is what makes you survive. And flicking some passes out to James Cook every once in a while. Dalton Kincaid is your number one target. That is no offense to Dalton Kincaid. I wouldn't want my Super Bowl roster being a GM and saying at the end of the day, Dalton Kincaid is my best weapon out there on the field. Not something I would love to say as a general manager of my football team. That's the case for the Buffalo Bills. And when you compare the MVP cases for Stafford and Josh Allen, the term is most valuable player for their team. And this is no slouch against Stafford. Stafford's played phenomenal this year. But I feel like if you plug in a backup quarterback for the Rams, he would be serviceable and be able to win games. If you insert a backup quarterback, put Mitchell Trubisky in for Josh Allen, this team don't have a shot. Like Josh Allen yesterday, put on his Superman cape. That one throw that he made, he initially ran the ball in for a touchdown, called the hold, brought it back. Very next play, throws an absolute seed for a touchdown. That gave them the lead. Josh Allen yesterday was phenomenal. Had a 123 passer rating. Threw for only 193 yards, but he accounted for 3 touchdowns. James Cook, he was able to run the ball efficiently well in the second half. And again, here's your stat line. Khalil Shakir, 5 for 65. Behind him, your 2 tight ends. And after that, no sort of production from your wide receivers. Keon Coleman didn't even catch a pass. Brandon Cooks out there doing cardio, for Christ's sakes. This roster is so bad. And the Bills really needed this game. They really did. They needed it for the division race and how competitive you may be in the playoffs. But this was your litmus test for the past couple weeks. Your litmus test has been, when you play these good teams, will you be able to compete in the playoffs in your own division, or in your own conference, rather? It's the idea that Josh Allen is going to have to put on an absolute masterclass for 4 straight games in order to get to the Super Bowl. 3 straight games in order to get to the Super Bowl. Now, I know a lot of people have said it this morning, it'll be a disappointment if the Bills don't get to the Super Bowl. I beg to differ. This team defensively is not that great. And this is when we can transition to the Patriots' point of view just a little bit. The Patriots dominated that first half. Drake Maye and the Patriots walked up and down the field, running the ball, passing the ball. And for some reason, they flatlined in the second half. But the Bills' defense is not that great. They're just not. When you look around their landscape in their own conference, the Broncos, and I talked about it a while ago with the Broncos. If there was a matchup with Buffalo having to go to Denver in the playoffs, I'm slamming the Broncos. There's no shot. I'm not betting on Josh Allen to go Super Saiyan like he did yesterday against that Broncos defense. The Patriots defense this year, they have some players, but they're not world breakers, specifically on their back end. They're still in a semi rebuild. Next year, I think this defense can be phenomenal if you just continue to build around what they have. But if the Bills were to match up with a team like the Broncos, and even if I think if they played the Patriots again, I would pick the Patriots to win that game. I just think the Patriots really collapsed. But we got to give credit to Josh Allen and how great he is as a football player. He's the best quarterback in the NFL. And this is when we're going to, again, transition to the Patriots. I'm not worried about the Patriots. I'm kind of concerned that outside of the big Travion Henderson run in the second half, they were lackluster on both sides of the ball. Now we just got to sit there and marvel over how well Travion Henderson is playing right now. He's really turned into the player they were hoping him to be early on in the season. He was able to shine with Stevenson's injury, and he's made a great implication on the Patriots roster. But Drake Maye was not the greatest yesterday. I did not love his final decision-making in the last drive. That final drive in the game to go get a drive in order to win the game. Didn't love what he did. He took a bad sack. Didn't love that throw that he made. Tried to make the Stephon Diggs either. I just think it was just a bad game. It was a bad game. For you to start off 24 points in the first half and you only score 7 for 30 minutes, that's just bad football. But I trust Mike Vrabel to have this team ready. Like, do you really think a Mike Vrabel-led defense is going to let Josh Allen, if they played them again, or even any other team, score 5 straight touchdown drives? They did benefit, and this is where I defend Vrabel just a little bit. They were able to benefit from some pretty questionable pass interference calls on third down that gave them a new set of downs. We'll discuss that just a little bit in a few. But I'm not going to bet that Mike Vrabel-led defense, a Mike Vrabel-led team is going to allow another 21-point deficit or 21-point lead in the first half to just get erased by letting somebody score 5 straight touchdown drives. Or at that case, yeah, it was 21 points. So yeah, 5 straight touchdowns. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But here is why I'm going to defend the Patriots as well. The bad thing was they lost to the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, if that was any other team yesterday, the Patriots don't lose that game. The greatness of Josh Allen was on full display because Josh Allen is going to have to play that way to keep his team in the run for the division. Like, that game was huge across all fronts for the Bills. But if you're the Patriots, you're still in the driver's seat for the 2 seed. I don't think they're going to get the 1 seed. I think that feels like it's pretty much locked up by the Broncos the way they've been playing. And I think the Broncos, they still have to play the Chiefs once, or did they have to play the Chiefs twice? I don't know the Broncos' full schedule, but they're going to be playing possibly a Chiefs without Patrick Mahomes. They might have to play the Chargers one more time. They got division opponents coming up. I don't know their schedule from the back of my hand, but if they do have to play the Chiefs, like, they're going to win those games. Like, Chiefs without Patrick Mahomes, they're not. They don't have a shot. But yeah, the bad thing, you lost to the best quarterback in the NFL, and they're 2 seeds up for taking, and you feel very confident going into the playoffs, having to have home playoff games in Foxborough at least for the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. So that's what they're going to be playing for, and I think Mike Vrabel, they got a big game coming up against Baltimore. I think that's the game that they are going to win. Baltimore has not looked good. So let's not get a little over-carried away with the Patriots, them losing this game. Now, again, back to what we'll discuss the officiating here. I did not love those pass interference calls. Like, I did not. Specifically the one against Davis. Did it look like he pulled the jersey just a little bit? Yes, but I didn't think him pulling the jersey helped out on that play to get that incompletion. It just wasn't the best ball by Josh Allen. Pretty bailout call. And was I the only one? I responded to Cowherd because he tweeted out. Was I the only one that thought Jones intercepted that ball that they called pass interference on? Like, I felt like he had firm control. The rule is, though, the tie goes to the receiver. But if we really looked at the replay, it felt like Jones had full control of the ball, and then Shakir was pretty much just playing safe and just like, oh, I'm going to make it look like I caught this ball. I think Jones had full control of the ball, and I did not love the pass interference. Look, they're going to call you, didn't turn his head. 9 times out of 10, these officials are going to call that. But I did not see any type of way, form, or fashion in the replay that affected Shakir's ability to catch the ball. And I'm sure, and I'm a referee and I can say this, I officiate NFL. I'm sure bang, bang play, it probably felt the same. Like, man, didn't really inflict the wide receiver's ability to catch the ball. So officiating helped the Bills to a certain degree. So that's why I fully cannot kill the Patriots. But the Patriots are going to be they're going to be fine. And the Bills, Josh Allen is just phenomenal. He's absolutely phenomenal. Last topic, we want to discuss just some Phillip Rivers. And I didn't get to talk about this. I wrote up a show last week that I told you guys I was wanting to talk about some Colts. And I'm going to just discuss it here because I wanted to talk about the decline of the Colts. I follow this team. I really wanted them to be in the mix for the playoffs. But they have went from a Super Bowl favorite to literally being in free fall and missing the playoffs in a matter of weeks. And I wrote this down last week. Chris Ballard was probably drinking last Sunday night. the worst possible outcome for this season has happened. Daniel Jones tore his ACL. Sauce Gardner almost tore his, kind of felt like he did tear his. And now you're going to a 44-year-old grandfather to be your starting quarterback for the rest of the season. Now, granted, I thought Riley Leonard last week actually played pretty well. He made some plays. And I didn't really love the idea that, this week we're going to throw in Phillip Rivers already. But, Phillip Rivers has a relationship with Shane Steichen. I thought just the idea, Phillip Rivers, been out for 5 years, had a case for the Hall of Fame this coming up round, like throwing all of that away for this roster kind of felt insane. But if you're Phillip Rivers that felt like you were in physical shape, and granted, this roster, they have the tools. You saw it yesterday. Like, I didn't watch this game, like, play by play, because I had Red Zone on. I was trying to watch the Packers game. This game wasn't on my radar. Granted, I want to watch some Phillip Rivers, but when I saw this game, I really just saw more Colt stuff with Phillip Rivers than I saw the Seahawks offense. So I have to go back and discuss this game because I want to discuss this team tomorrow. The Seahawks, I've been in love with them. Kind of concerning that they were in a field goal battle with a 44-year-old grandpa who could barely throw the ball yesterday. Kind of concerning. We'll discuss them more tomorrow. But the Colts just got to be a sucky season. Daniel Jones, him tearing his Achilles. Not shocked. I mean, he's out there playing with a broken fibula. That's going to cause you to favor. And I know this because I've studied it in college. It's going to cause you to favor that other leg. So you got a guy out there playing with a broken fibula. Like, we knew this was possibly going to happen. Like, there's no way the Colts were just super comfortable out there throwing Daniel Jones for the rest of the season out there with a broken fibula. So he ended up tearing Achilles on his other leg because he favored that one. Just absolutely brutal for Daniel Jones. I even forgot he's already tore his ACL. And now, with these injuries, there's reports that the Colts are not even fully invested in the Jones next year. Kind of sucks. Because you got this man hurt, and you're not even at least going to respect the man and give him a shot next year? Because I think fully healthy. I don't know. Now, granted, I don't know how long Daniel Jones has been hurt. But Daniel Jones has played early on in this season very well. They were considered this like a quarterback resurrection project in Indianapolis. Now, going into this season, we were all like going bananas. Like you were, and we thought we said this was an indictment against Anthony Richardson, but we all said you would rather throw Daniel Jones out there than your guy that you invested a first round pick, 4th overall pick in Anthony Richardson. You would rather throw out there Daniel Jones, who, granted, he's a 1st round pick himself, but he struggled his whole career. You'd rather throw him out there than Anthony Richardson. Well, Daniel Jones was out there saying that the Colts made the right decision. But all of that has just come to an abrupt end. Like, this team has invested, the same thing with the Packers, just a lot for this season. They traded away 2 first-round picks for Sauce. He's hurt. They kind of put all the chips in the table for the season because they felt like they had the roster. And granted, the AFC this season is wide open. And if they have the roster to compete. But this quarterback thing is just going to screw them again. And this has been the case for the Colts, even when Phillip Rivers was the quarterback. Like, we always felt like the Colts, and this is a credit to Chris Ballard, like, he's built a great team over the last couple of years. But for some reason, they have not been able to get the quarterback thing right. They've tried Matt Ryan. They rolled out Carson Wentz. They've rolled out Phillip Rivers. They drafted Anthony Richardson. Like, nothing has worked. Nothing has worked. And now they resorted to a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers. And yesterday, he made some plays. I think yesterday really proved that this team's dead. In a go-get-it drive, when Phillip Rivers had to actually push the ball down the field, he threw an interception. Like, they came up with the stats. He was super efficient, throwing below 10 yards, throwing behind the sticks. But anything past the sticks, he was absolutely abysmal yesterday. And I think I might be harping a different tone if the Colts were able to come out with a victory yesterday, which they did. Like that final drive where, their second final drive where Shane Steichen resorted to wanting to kick a 60-yard field goal in Seattle in those conditions with the game on the line. I was like, this guy's insane. Like, he's just throwing. I thought it was, because it was what, 4th and 3, 4th and 4. Like, it was kind of like a situation like, I mean, I would probably go for this on offense. But he trusted the leg of his kicker, and he made it straight down the middle. And I was like, oh my gosh. The Seattle Seahawks, who everybody, all of last week, even I was, harping on the idea that this defensive line was going to kill this man, did not have the opportunity to do so. He goes in there, gets a W, but unfortunately, even after playing a pretty good game, the Colts weren't able to get a stop, and the Seahawks get a W by kicking a game-winning field goal by Jason Myers. It was a field goal fest yesterday. I don't even think Seattle scored a touchdown. Jackson Smith and Jigba didn't even do anything. Like that game yesterday, it was actually just pretty bananas all around. But that's all I got to think about that. Just the Colts decline. Man, it's just depressing. Like, if you're a Colts fan, to go from the idea of we have a Super Bowl caliber team, like we're 8-2, and I didn't even talk about this. They were 8-2 going into the bye, and now they are 8-6. They've lost 4 straight. They've lost 5 out of their last 6. And you go from a possible fringe Super Bowl contender to possibly winning 1 playoff game. And that's what I wrote last week. And now you're going from a potential Super Bowl contender to probably not even making the playoffs because your own division, the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence, who I want to talk about at some point, he's balling. The Texans, that defense, phenomenal. They get a win yesterday, so they got a shot to make the playoffs. And now you're 3rd in your division. And now you're on the outside looking in to making the playoffs. Just absolutely brutal times if you're the Indianapolis Colts. Absolutely abysmal. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of here. I actually got to leave in the next 5 minutes. We got this perfectly on time. 5 topics roughly in an hour time span. Thank you all for listening. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you all tomorrow. Going to be out of town on Wednesday, so tomorrow's show will be the last show of the week. I plan on probably taking my microphone or something with me and shooting some some thoughts on some games. I might try to watch some games while I'm going to Disney World. So I might take a battery charger with me and watch some of these games on Saturday and Sunday while we're in the parks. And I can't remember. We have some off days, so maybe I might be able to watch some football someday. So I'm gonna take my phone with me and probably just make some Instagram reels and give quick updates on what I think about the games or whatever and things of that nature. So I might be filming some content for some thoughts on the games. But tomorrow, we're gonna talk about some Eagles. I want to talk about Seattle, talk about the Bengals and that whole fiasco with Joe Burrow. I want to talk about that in this show, but I saved it for next show. And I want to talk a little bit more Cowboys as well. So we'll have a show tomorrow and we'll discuss all that. I'll see you all tomorrow, approximately around the same time, about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And thank you all for listening. Check out my podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Like the podcast, share it to a family or friend, and I will see you all tomorrow. Love you guys. Peace.